This is the Haulin Assets podcast, where we show you how to start and run your own trucking company. Ever wanted to go out on your own? Follow Chris as he goes through the highs and lows of running on his own authority.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Haulin Assets podcast. I am Craig, your host, and over there, it's some guy.
I think my name's Chris. If I remember right.
Well, I mean,
I have a bad memory, but
that's all right.
I usually get that one right.
People are here for me, Chris. Let's give them what they want, okay? So today we are talking about June financials. I'm really excited because you promised me last month that the numbers were going to be really, really nice to look at. So I'm hoping that's the case.
They are pretty.
I have not peeked ahead. I might as we're talking, but I haven't peeked ahead yet, and I'm excited.
So we're going to get the raw reaction.
Exactly. So, Chris, before we do that, I did want to ask you about what I always do: any stories from the road or stories from the office. I mean, you're not driving as much these days, but how's the month been?
I do kind of have a story, kind of from the road, not the trucking road, but from the other road.
Okay.
But we're going to save that one for the end. I actually want to start this episode off with a question to you.
Oh, okay. All right. Question. All right. Considering how smart I am, this should go really, really well. All right.
So what do you think has a bigger impact on your bottom line? Saving $1 worth of expenses or increasing your revenue by $1?
Okay, so saving $1 or making $1, which one is better for my bottom line?
Yes.
Oh gosh.
Or are they
okay,
equal?
So in theory, they'd be equal, right? In practice, I'm not sure. Oh, jeez.
Yeah,
now I'm thinking about taxes.
Looks like it's going to break.
Oh, geez. Oh, yeah, I think it already did. All right, so $1 saved or $1 earned, which one is better? I'm going to go with $1 saved because that sounds a little more like something George Washington would tell me, and I like that.
Benjamin Franklin is the one that said that. But yeah, you are at least somewhat on the right track.
Okay, so what is it? Saving?
It is the savings.
Okay, all right. So
and
why
there's
is that?
some logic behind it.
Well, I'll be the judge of that.
It's because with every $1 of revenue, there is also expenses that go along with that $1. So just because you increase your revenue by $1 doesn't mean that $1 is going to translate to an extra $1 in revenue. Whereas if you save $1 in expenses, it's a 1-to-1 increase in net income.
So wait, back up. So if you make $1, it's not necessarily that you made $1. Is that
so $1 in revenue? So $1 on the top line does not translate to an extra $1 on the bottom line because there's a bunch of expenses in the middle there.
So what you're saying is that there's such a thing as gross revenue and net revenue or profit. Net income. So gross income, net income, but there's no such thing as gross savings and net savings.
Not really.
Not
and so
way.
Let's use a trucking example to kind of help elaborate on this a little bit.
Please do.
So let's pretend that I've got one of my trucks that I've decided I'm going to put a temporary driver in it when my driver goes on his 34-hour reset or wants to take a weekend off. I've got
a truck
my cousin there. Bobby Joe. That's a good trucker name, right?
All right.
My cousin Bobby Joe wants to take the truck on the weekend while my driver's sitting.
By the way, the 8 Bobby Joes listening right now are livid with you for making fun of their name.
I think it's a great name. I just think it matches.
Anyway, okay, all right. So Bobby Joe's going on the road.
Bobby Joe's going on the road, and so he goes out on the road, and let's say he finds this night. We've got this nice sweet run that goes up to Portland, Oregon, and back. You can do that pretty easy in 3 days. While the driver's on a little tiny weekend, long weekend, or a little tiny vacation. So, for every $1,000 of extra revenue I get because of that, what's also tied to it?
Oh, the driver pay,
fuel expenses, repairs, maintenance, all that kind of stuff. And so in that, for every extra $1,000 of revenue we make, there may only be, $100 to $200 in net income that actually makes that bottom line.
Okay. All right. So, but if you, now I'm trying to think of another
$100 in fuel expenses every month because let's say we get a better fuel card or something else, or we do a better job of fuel planning and we save $100 in fuel expenses. That's a $100 increase to your net income.
Okay. So just mathematically speaking, what you're saying is that saving is going to be more effective than earning.
Yeah. Dollar for dollar.
Dollar for dollar. That's fine. But that does run up against something you've told me about in the past, which is basically we want to keep these trucks running because whether it's your rate per mile or whatever the other fixed expenses that you're trying to bring down to make a smaller part of your expenses, right? Whatever, by getting the truck running, then that is also valuable. I guess I'm just thinking to myself, well, it sounds like he's saying don't put your trucks out on the road.
No, I'm not saying that. They're both important, but what really has that bigger immediate impact is saving on expenses. And so the point of this is just to keep in mind that it is really important to control your expenses, because controlling your expenses has that immediate impact on your bottom line. Every dollar that you can save is a dollar you get to take home and spend however you want. That dollar can go towards that savings of that really nice fancy pickup truck that you want to say, you want to be able to buy later on down the road. So it's just really important in a business to manage your expenses well.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Well, should we get to our main topic, or did you have anything else on that you wanted to talk about?
No, I kind of feel like we're doing 2 impact tips this episode. That felt like an impact tip.
It kind of was. I wasn't going to call you out on it, Chris, for messing up the episode, but whatever.
Yeah, I screw things up all the time.
All right, so let's talk about our July. Is it July? What?
June.
Who am I?
We are in July.
What is
this
truth,
is June.
Chris? It's
and it's kind of late in the month to be doing a profit and loss episode.
That's true, but we're doing it anyway.
But we're doing it.
The people
better
demand.
late than never.
Okay, so tell me about the month of June. Was it as good as you promised me before?
A whole bunch of new records.
Oh, hey, all right. How'd it go? What do we start with? Miles?
So total miles ran, new record, 34,523 miles.
Wow. What was the record before that?
I think it was around 20 something.
Okay. So that's a good
pretty
increase.
Significant increase. Yep.
Okay. All right. So and how much of that was Deadhead miles?
Deadhead was 2,534 miles, which translates to 7.3%, which is higher than we've been seeing lately. But it's gonna be a little bit higher like that for a little while. 2 of the drivers that we hired, for truck number 2 and truck number 3 are both in. They kind of live. One of them lives in a very rural area, so it's almost 100 plus miles Deadhead
just to get to his house.
Just to get to and from his house. So we knew that was going to happen going into hiring these 2 drivers, and it's okay. There's benefits with kind of them as well, so that it kind of makes up for it. But our Deadhead miles are going to be impacted a little bit because of that. And
as I recall, 7.3, it's not like that's a disaster. We're aiming for under 5, but as long as it's under 10, no alarm bells.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So the next number would be what? Total revenue?
Total revenue.
Ooh, okay. We get to the good stuff right away.
This is the good stuff. So this is the top line.
Okay.
$94,021.13.
I'm sorry, say that again.
$91,000. 94,000.
94,000. I thought that's what you said.
$21.13.
Jeez. Okay. Oh my gosh.
So that's good.
That's very good. What was the record before that? My word.
You're asking me to remember things. I'm having a hard time remembering things.
I'm trying to remember what it was.
I should have prepped a little better for this episode. I'm trying to think.
It was down in like the 30s or 40s.
No, it was high. It was higher than that.
Yeah,
I think I want to say 60,000 or something.
Okay, all right.
Because last month was revenue wise was a good month too. We had, it's just that we've had 3 trucks running. And this time it was 3 trucks running the whole month.
Last month, as I recall, you had the 3rd truck. But the driver had only just started, or you're still looking for a driver, and so that driver started in June. Is that right?
They started in May, so they started in May. I think we had the full trucks running in May, but in June the rates were just really high. 3 trucks running, high rates, just kind of a perfect storm for everything coming together. So, $94,000.
Yeah, wow. Speaking of which, what was the rate per mile then?
It was $2.72 a mile, which is really a great rate per mile. So that's part of the reason. I think last month we were closer to 60,000 total because it was closer to 2.
Yeah.
I think it was 210 if I remember right. So
now, if I can I stick with this rate per mile number for a moment, because when you started out, when this podcast started years ago, your number that I recall you aiming for was like 185 or something like that. If I can get to, you had a number, it was 180, 185, somewhere in there.
I think we're talking about the expense per mile was, if we could get to 185, we'd at least be kind of breaking even, a little bit better than breaking even. But
was that expense per mile or rate per mile?
So our expense per mile, I think, was like 170.
Right, I guess.
And so we were like, if we could do 185 a mile, it was pretty good. But I think at the beginning, that's kind of more where we were, was a 185 to 2.
The reason I ask is because now we're staring down the barrel of 272 a mile, and you were saying rates were great in June, and okay, so that explains part of it. But when things slow down, we get into September, October, I bet will be a little slower. Certainly February would be slower.
Yeah, September and October should still be really good, but January and February it'll start to slow down again.
Okay, so let's say we get to January, February. Now that you've got 3 trucks running, maybe 5 at that point, because you want to keep growing this small fleet. But once we get to that point, do you expect the rate per mile to go back down sub 2? I mean, barring other changes in the economy or whatever. Or now that you've got this many trucks running, doing this many miles, is this kind of pulling that rate per mile up on a more permanent basis?
I think it's going to pull it up on a more permanent basis for a couple reasons. One, fuel's a lot higher right now than it has been for a while, and I don't think that's going to change too much. So you've got to increase, rate per mile to compensate for that fuel. And driver wages are increasing too. The extreme shortage of drivers that we've experienced the last, 6 months plus is really starting to push people to pay drivers more. So between those increase in driver pay and the increase in fuel costs, I don't think we're going to get much below the $2 a mile.
But you're not expecting 272
I don't think it's going to be 272 forever. I think we're going to have a really strong year. Traditionally the fourth quarter, so October, November, December, are the strongest months of the year because of the holidays and all the product and goods and stuff that are moving across the country. It's just so high then that I think we'll stay good. Not necessarily 272 good, but I think we'll stay pretty good until the end of the year. And then January, February, I wouldn't be surprised at all if we see a pretty sharp, kind of a normalization. I'm not going to say a drop off, but more of a normalization.
Okay. All right. That's good to know. Okay. So with this 272 rate per mile, I don't do the math in my head, Chris, because like you.
Math hurts.
Yeah, math hurts. I don't like the spreadsheets like you do. So what was the profit for June?
$29,876.82.
Hey, that's not bad.
That's not a bad. That's a really good number. I mean, it's a record, I think, in 2 ways. One, net income per truck. You're talking close to $10,000 net income per truck.
That's really good.
That's really
good. Now that you put it that way.
I think we've had one other month in the history of Haulin Assets where it's been kind of close to that, and so to have all 3 trucks average that amount in a single month is a pretty dang good. That's a pretty dang good month.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so what else do you want to pull out from the profit and loss? Any other details with these numbers that we want to talk about?
So that profit one, let's talk a little bit about that. It's good. It's a high number, obviously, but it's also helping to make up for, if you remember right, we had a loss in April. That increase in profit in this month helps make up for that. And you just keep in mind that, you see big numbers in a business like that. It doesn't mean it's time to go out and party. We're not going to go, blow it all on, bad activities.
I've seen the movies, Chris. I know what Leonardo DiCaprio does with his money once he gets it.
We're not going to go out and do that. So, save it for a rainy day, put it away. 'Cause when that January and February comes along, this is where a lot of guys get themselves into trouble with businesses. They see big numbers in it like that, and they think, well, even if I just take half of that and go, spend it on something, I'm going to be okay. Well, you might, but you wait for that January and February. You need to have a coffer like this built up to get you through the slower times of the year. Right.
So this is 29,000. Oh gosh, call it 30,000 if we're rounding up. That's amazing. That all goes straight into as much savings as possible.
Yeah, we're not going to take any extra money out of the business. Okay. We're just going to leave it in there.
Well, okay.
Yep.
All right, so much for that shiny new truck, Chris,
Yeah,
but whatever.
The day will come.
So tell me about, you said that the new driver started in May and then drove through June. How's the new driver going?
So two of them, they're doing really well, and it was good. And one of the new drivers, I don't expect to see the same kind of numbers in July, because one of the new drivers, he told us about this vacation before he even started working for us, that he's taken kind of a bigger vacation, or took a bigger vacation in July than he does normally. It's a once in every 5-year vacation. It was 10 days, something like that. And so he was off the road for 10 days in July. So I don't expect to see as good of numbers in July, but maybe better in August, because in August we should have a fourth truck running.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Fourth truck
in
August. That's amazing.
We actually got the third truck. So the third brand new truck, or the second. What are we talking here? I can't even remember.
Chris is confused.
I'm confusing myself. The second brand new truck hit the road about 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
And so the fourth truck, the green truck, another reason the numbers in July aren't going to be quite as good as truck number 4, old green, my trusty, the
OG.
The OG. It had to get a new turbo.
Oh.
And so timing was pretty good, because we were giving Mike the new truck. He was able to take it right as the turbo blew on
Nice.
that truck. And because of shipping and scarcity on parts, it took us quite a while to get that turbo. It took almost a week and a half just to get it here in the state, and then some time to put it on. So it's on now. We've got it, got the truck back from the shop, got it all cleaned up, and it's going to get turned over to a new driver who's supposed to start on Friday.
Wow. And that sounds like a pretty expensive repair.
Yeah, it was.
That's not just time, but
$7,500.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah.
Oh, and here I am in my garage trying to install a $20 serpentine.
So this
sucks. I'm trying to fix my Mazda for $20. At least it's not $7,000.
This little turbo is worth more than cars I've owned. So yeah.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. Good. Well, anything else from the numbers that we want to pull out and talk about, or should we move on to an impact tip?
I think that's about it. So impact number 2.
Well, that's I will say, before we go on, congratulations on the record-setting month. That's fantastic.
It's exciting.
It's really fun to hear about.
It's cool.
And
it's cool to see the growth. Cool to see the big numbers. You can kind of see how all the hard work over the last 2 years is starting to get to the point where at some point we're going to see money that we can take out of the business and really have an impact on quality of life.
Right.
Why we do this whole thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's that's really cool. And not only is it $30,000 that you can put in savings for that rainy day fund, but it's in my mind, it's almost like a psychological savings account, where it's like, look, it's not going to be this way forever. Yeah. But now you've had a month like this where you can go, you know what, it can be that good.
Yep.
And we just keep working to try to make it that good as often as we can.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. So impact tip number 2. What do you got for me, Chris?
Keep your overhead low.
Okay. So, first of all, define overhead. What is overhead, Chris?
Overhead are basically, for the most part, your fixed expenses that you have in a business, or just really that a lot of the fixed expenses are part of your overhead, but then also those expenses that you kind of have to keep a business running.
Okay, so we're not talking about the variable expenses?
It's not so much the variable expenses. It's not like your fuel expense. It's not like anything like that. Like your truck payment would be a good example of a overhead. If you've got an office person working for you, that's really going to kind of be overhead. If you own a building and the rent on a building, if you're leasing a building, that's overhead. Those are some pretty good examples of overhead expenses.
So tell me, when you say keep your overhead low, how do I do that? What's my mindset here? So
I was, we know from last episode, I recorded from Morocco.
Which was awesome.
It was awesome. I was there for a military job. But in the morning, one of the mornings, I was taking my morning run along the ocean front in Rabat, Morocco, probably about 6 o'clock in the morning. And we're just running along the ocean on a running trail. And I look over and I see what I term a nice Moroccan distribution center.
Okay.
What had happened is, and there's going to be a picture of this in the show notes that people can see, and then also it might not happen till next week, but we'll do a social push on Facebook and show the photo there as well. But what I see is this parking lot that is part of a sports court where it's like a soccer court, where
Sure.
little mini soccer court that they've got nets around to keep the ball from going into the ocean, right along the ocean. There's a parking lot that services that sports court. And in that parking lot, like 6 o'clock in the morning, is one big truck, and backed up to it, I think it was, I'm just trying to remember this from my head, I think there were 5 smaller, roughly the size of, a straight truck, the bigger U-Haul trucks.
Right.
Roughly 5 of those backed up against the back of this bigger truck.
If this was a Jason Bourne movie, that would for sure be a drug deal or something, right?
Yeah. And this actually was like half a mile away from this one of the scenes from Mission Impossible where it was filmed. So anyway, you've got all these 4 trucks, and they're using it as like a distribution center. You've got the big truck, you've got 4 or 5 smaller trucks backed up against it. They're all kind of making this circle or cross shape. And so the one truck's unloading product and putting it in the other 4 or 5 smaller trucks.
Right.
So
that was the distribution center.
It's a distribution center.
That's
It's
fantastic.
essentially they're using this parking lot that's not full that early in the morning on a weekday as a distribution center. And they're saving themselves a ton of overhead by not having a physical distribution center. And so I'm thinking about that. That's genius. That's a good example of a company managing their overhead expenses and being careful. So, we talked about first in the episode, impact tip number 1, kind of managing your expenses. Well, that's one way that a company has made it so that they can save money on an expense that automatically goes straight to their bottom line.
Right. I mean, hey, you know what? I've got a great example of that. We're sitting in a studio that I built in my own backyard for the purposes of podcasting and YouTube and all that. I could have gone and rented a place, but I've been doing this for years now.
Yeah.
And if I'd been paying rental fees that whole time, gosh, that would have really, really bumped that up. But instead, I invested a little bit up front and kept that recurring cost from ever hitting my own bottom line.
And that's a really good point. Kind of one of the things that I planned on ending this with, as a great example of this, is it's a fine line between being so tight, saving expenses that you prevent yourself from making any even bigger profits later on in the future. Because if you would have day one, you could have saved yourself money early on by going and renting, right? Because that rental expense for a little bit would have been, you would have had a lot of upfront costs when you built this studio.
Right.
And you could have saved those upfront costs by just renting early on.
Yeah.
But you made that big expense early on, and over time it saved you way more money. And so you've got to be kind of careful, because it's a balancing act, and it's kind of a fine line that you walk between, not spending on expenses just for the sake of saving money. You've got to be willing to invest some of that money at some point, and that those investments will over time increase your bottom line. So you have to be careful there. It's a juggling act.
And I mean, like so much else that we talk about, it's ultimately, hey, you got to use your brain to think about your situation.
Yep.
You're talking about a principle here, and people are going to have to apply that as it pertains to their own situation. The good news is, Chris, if you don't mind me plugging a little bit, people can find you.
Yeah.
People can find you and ask you these questions, right? I mean, we talk about, people can go on Facebook. They can go to HaulinAssetsLLC.com, leave comments, and we can answer little questions there. But where else can people find you, Chris?
Always shoot me an email, chris@HaulinAssetsLLC.com. I'm happy to respond to them. It's kind of funny, the Facebook comments, you talk a little bit about that. I think I typically always respond to them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there might be some that kind of fall through the cracks, but I always try to respond to them. But it happens in bunches. Like right now, I don't think I've responded to any in about 3 weeks between my trip to Morocco, a bunch of other things I've got going on, and then trying to play catch up after having been gone out of the office for a little over a week. I've just been slammed. Even those ones, they will get responded to eventually. But sometimes it may be, I may respond the next day to the comment. It may take me 3 or 4 weeks to respond to the comment,
Right.
but I do respond to them.
So that's one way to go. You know what I was fishing for, Chris?
What were you fishing for?
Motorcarrierhq.com.
Yeah.
People can go there. And
You can always go there, and you can call the business coaches when you have questions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not typically the one that answers those questions there, but those guys are smarter than me in a lot of ways. In
I don't
certain
doubt
things.
it. I don't doubt it.
I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed.
No, yeah, it's like I said, I was fishing for that one just because I remembered, it's been a while since we told people that, you can go to motorcarrierhq.com. It's and not just the calls. Yeah, people can call, talk to a business coach, but a lot of resources.
There are a lot of resources
that
there.
people can find there for helping to get started managing overhead, understanding accounting, the basics. And there's a lot of stuff that people can get there.
We've got a blog and a news section there that has a lot of topics on owning a trucking company and a lot of good resources.
Well, Chris, shall we call it for today then?
I think that's probably good.
All right. Well, go to motorcarrierhq.com. Also go to haulinassetsllc.com for full show notes for past episodes. Go find us on Facebook. Email Chris, whatever. You can email me too. I just won't be able to answer any of your questions. If it has something to do with podcasting, maybe I can answer that. Anyway, we'll be back again with another topic in a couple weeks. So, Chris, thanks for coming by. And,
good to be here. It's good to be in person again and get to see it. It seems like it's been a while.
It's no Morocco, but it's okay here. All right. I'll see you next time.
See you.